one question I've always struggled to answer is Litsolo, where exactly did you grow up? I found this hard because we've always been a family that moved from place to place, just in search of a better opportunity, a better lifestyle, you know. So I was born in Johannesburg. I remember we stayed in Hillbrow, and we didn't stay there too long. I think it was a year or two, and then from there we moved to Cape Town. And before we moved to Cape Town, I was in Atlanta, Georgia for 6 months. Um, I was in a preschool or kindergarten called A Parent's Peace of Mind. The irony of that is that there was this set of twins that always like picked on me, you know? And I remember one point where I actually ran away from school and I got lost, but I bumped into one of our neighbors, and she took me to her house until my mother came and knocked off and collected me. So from there we lived in Cape Town. We lived in Woodstock. I attended a school called Mountain Road Primary School. It was all right there. I think I was the only black student in that school. And then from there, I think I was there for 3.5 years. And we also had a stint of staying in Kenya. I beg your pardon, for 6 weeks. And Kenya, what I remember about Kenya, the people were welcoming. I remember there was a huge mosquito problem there. When you're sleeping, you have to have nets around the bed. Um, it's very hot. But more importantly, I remember after the fact, at the time, I didn't know what was going on because I was still young. I think I was in grade 2 or grade 3. My mother contracted malaria, and we weren't allowed to see each other. But at the time, they were not telling me exactly why I wasn't allowed to see her. But so there was a bit of a touch and go situation there. But thank the Lord, she made it out alive. And so I was in Cape Town for 3.5 years, sorry. And in grade 3, we left for Kimberley. I was there for 6 months. I felt out in Kimberley. I didn't feel like I belonged. Um, the, the curriculum, the syllabus was much harder than it was in Cape Town. I remember my mother and I always had these sleepless nights of us trying to figure out the mathematics. It was just so difficult compared to what I was used to. The environment of Kimberley, it just wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy myself in Kimberley, and maybe not through any fault of Kimberley, but just how things were set up. I arrived late. Obviously, I was the odd kid out. They talked in a different way than what I was used to. Um, I was there for a short time, so trying to adapt was tricky. Nevertheless, after that 6 months, we lived in Mafikeng. Mafikeng was much better environment. Um, Let me just say, uh, I grew up with a mother, two older sisters, and my father passed away when I was in grade 9, sorry, standard 7. So anyway, let me just take a step back. When we used to stay in Hillbrow, my father would visit us um, frequently. And so one day I'm excited to see him. And because I'm excited to see him, as a young buck, I didn't know how to sort of control my excitement. So what I did was, I remember jumping in exhilaration when he entered the door. I ended up jumping from a sofa to one of these sort of cushion-like sofas. And as I landed on it, the cushion sort of popped and feathers started to pop everywhere. And I remember him sort of like hitting me or reprimanding me. But so that really hit me because I didn't understand why he would have to hit me for being excited. You'd think, okay, maybe just have a word with me, especially because he wasn't in my day-to-day life. After the fact, many years later, I figured maybe he was just trying to say, okay, no, don't do things like that. But at the time, it left a sort of a negative biological imprint, which sort of let me believe that you will get punished for being excited. So it ended up sort of numbing me in a way. And especially like the next time I saw my dad, actually, I was in standard 4. It was actually my birthday. And because of that incident, I hadn't seen him since that incident to this day. When I was in standard 4, and he arrived on my birthday, and I just didn't know how to greet him, because we hadn't sort of created that bond. And I don't know if I should say dad, if I should say sir. It was very difficult. It was like I was meeting a stranger. Really, I knew him in theory, but we hadn't spent. I don't remember us spending any sort of one-on-ones together, going out on trips. So when I met him on my birthday, it was an awkward experience. And to be honest, I don't even remember what we talked about. And and he was only there for a day. And nevertheless, so from there, so I was in Mafikeng for 3 years or four, and then in standard five, I started my boarding school in Potchefstroom. So I was always moving from schools to schools, which which taught me sort of adaptability in terms of social, but it taught me I never really knew who I was because I always have to adapt to the new environment. Just as I sort of get to know people or get to know the surroundings or get to know the culture, um, through trying to reach, through my mother trying to get to a better opportunities through employment, we would have to move. So that was a problem in that I always felt alone in a way. I always felt alone. Which culture do I sort of live by? So, and I felt like, and another thing, my sisters and I, my I'm 14 years younger than my second born, and I'm 18 years younger than the firstborn sister, and my mother is 40 years older than me. So certain things I couldn't connect with them with, not only because of the age, but because of the aspect of maybe needing a male figure in my life, which was I may not have realized it at the time, but as I grew older, I realized just exactly how much I needed like a father figure. Because there was my father passed away. I didn't have a brother. I had cousins, male cousins, and and uncles, of course, but they were so far away. And just the concept of calling and saying, "Hey, could you help me out with this? Can you talk to me about that?" It was a far fetched concept that didn't even cross my mind. Anyway, so in standard five, I had one of my best friends actually was involved in a car accident, and it was one of the most painful things after besides my father passing away because what the accident did to him, it not only did it sort of paralyze him, but it turned his mind from a 13-year-old to like a 6-year-old. Uh, and it was very difficult because the last time I saw him, we could talk, we could relate, and because of this accident, it had turned him into a different person, and I couldn't sort of, I couldn't wrap my head around it. In sort of trying to talk to him, it was extremely difficult, um, and I would see him less often because of that, because he had moved down to his grandmother's, I believe, in a completely different province, and so nevertheless, so from Potch Central, I moved to Potch Boys High School, um, which was fine. I liked Potch Boys, but Potch Boys is also where I started to drink because we would have um, these sort of parties, not parties per se, these sort of dances where either the boys' high school hosts the girls' high, or the girls would host the boys, and the schools are like maybe 5 kilometers away from each other. So so it was a bit of a culture to sort of get yourself a little nip when you're allowed to go to town, because when you go to town, you're allowed to go to town every Friday to go buy your groceries, and so people just take the advantage to sort of mingle and stuff like that. Another thing is, I was absolutely petrified of girls growing up. I still am, to be honest. Things are slightly better, but I was petrified of girls. I don't know exactly what to talk to them about. I can't talk to them about Kaizer Chiefs, can I? So yeah, so we would just drink to get yourself that sort of artificial courage, and and that's where my drinking sort of my drinking career, for lack of better words, started. So I finished with high school, and then from there, I took a year off. I helped out at the family business because just to sort of pass time and think about what I want to do. And at the end of that year, I decided to do a business management degree. So I decided to do a business management degree in the same town, in the Northwest University, but in Mafeking. And I was on campus. I wasn't on campus, but I was in res. I was in res, just off campus. And this is where things just started to get out of hand. I, I the first year was all right, or the first 6 months was okay. I was attending classes, I was doing things as I was supposed to. But after a while, I just sort of started to disconnect with the course that I was doing, and I ended up sort of partying a lot. And this is where I started to smoke marijuana, and we smoked marijuana heavy. Uh, I had friends from all over the country, Lesotho, Botswana, locally, of course, Johannesburg. And we just got into the culture of drinking, smoking weed, and engaging with women, really. So, so from there, I think I was there for a year and a half, and I ended up dropping out. I dropped out, did the rest of that 6 months. I took a year, I worked at the family business. And then the next year, I went to Cape Town, Cape Tech, and I was studying sports management because of my love for football. And so this whole time, I'm smoking weed. So when I go to Cape Town, I'm smoking weed. It's weed and alcohol. It's marijuana and alcohol. And the hard drugs hadn't come into the picture yet. Cape Town was okay, fine. But what happened in Cape Town, a significant thing, was I got introduced to this documentary. It's called Zeitgeist. And what this documentary was about was sort of explaining things in a way that sort of aren't explained in the mainstream. So just how maybe things could be rigged, and how what you think how you think the world is, it isn't. Be it governments, be it politics, be it banks, be it wars, whatever you've been taught is actually, be it history, whatever you've been taught is actually like is the furthest thing from the truth, really. And in fact, if somebody tells you the truth, if you need to be either shocked, scared, concerned, or amazed. And that's how you realize if something is true or not. That was the mentality I had then. It could be the furthest thing from the truth, but this is what I was introduced to. And this hit home because growing up, I always felt like there's something strange about this world that we live in. I just couldn't put my finger on it. So when I came across this information, it was like something went off in my head, like, oh my goodness. So I wasn't imagining things, you know what I'm saying? So Cape Town, fine. I'm there for 3 years. I graduate. It's all good. And then I come back home. I think there's an emergency in the family business, and they need me to sort of help out in reception and all of that, do the bookkeeping. So there was a bit of a disconnect between me and the family business, to be honest with you. So for the most part, in working in the family business, I was working on autopilot. I was I was torn between maybe doing what I would have liked to do versus helping out the family. And I've always had that struggle. And there was a lot of times where my mother and I didn't disagree. I mean, sorry, didn't agree on things, and I felt that she didn't support me, and she favored other people over me, and that was a bit hard to take. And my mother and I were in a good place now, but there was long periods where I blamed her for things. I thought she was very harsh with some of the words that she would use. And the problem, and another thing, when you're in situations where you don't have a father, and I've got two older sisters, but when you don't have a father and your sisters are away, and you don't know where else to turn. Like if you're having a situation with your mother, maybe under normal circumstances you could maybe turn to your father for advice and sort of balance things out. But that absence, it was a bit tough on me, like having to sort of clash with my mother on certain things. Oh, she could have been right with many things, but I believe certain things she could have handled a bit better. And but I realized much later that she was just doing the best she could, and that emotional connection I needed from her, she for whatever reason she couldn't give me. So my mother could give me everything I needed, like physical needs, like if I need equipment for sports, if I need everything I needed, obviously the food on the table, a house to sleep in. She wouldn't give me what I wanted, which is fair. But if I needed something, she had my back, and I love her for that. So so I would clash with my mom about the family business, but at the end of the day, it was her business. So I always had to step down in terms of my position. So when I came back from Cape Town to help out the family, this is where I started also, this is where I started taking cocaine. Um, so at this point, um, these conspiracy theories, I would sort of go deeper down the rabbit hole, and the deeper you go, the more stressed you are, really, because, or at least the more stressed I was, in addition to everything else that was happening, because I got to that point where I felt like the world was coming to an end, and and obviously when you're reading things, certain things are sensationalized, which is part of the game. But I believe I found a lot of truths there. I found a lot of truths, and I thought to myself, the world is coming to an end. What's the point? And I would sort of try and tell people, and they think, "Nah, you're crazy. There's nothing. You're a conspiracy theorist. Whatever what you're saying can't be true." And it was a bit frustrating. So what would happen is when I would find like-minded people that also believe the same, it was great. The problem is I was going down sort of like a dark path, and I wasn't sort of snapping out of it. You know what I'm saying? So I would have I would have a friend or two or three. So we would start taking cocaine and sort of discuss these things. Um, and to us, we thought we were smart. Like, hey, we know things that people don't. Not realizing that really we're going down a sort of dark path, and you can't worry about what you can't change. All you can do is focus on what you can change. You know what I mean? But at the time, I didn't have that mentality. Once I got into a negative path or negative way of thinking, I would stay down that path for a long period of time. I wouldn't I wouldn't be able to snap out of it and go the other way. So we would take cocaine on weekends, started off taking cocaine on weekends. So what happened from there, cocaine started to become expensive. And another thing, there was only one dealer who sold cocaine in the town. And he would always take forever sometimes. And sometimes when you start to get addicted to things, you want to take your drug now. So what happened is there was a drug called ketamine that was introduced. Um, Now ketamine is just like cocaine, just much cheaper. So you could get half the amount, no, double the amount, I lie. You could get double the amount of cocaine, but for half the price with similar effects. So a lot of people there started to be a shift. A lot of people who started taking cocaine would start to shift to ketamine. During this ketamine phase, I would also take crack cocaine. But crack cocaine was so dangerous, I felt, to me, because of how desperately I needed to get a fix once my stash had finished. Um, Crack cocaine, we call it eat some more because it's one of the most powerful highs, but which don't last very long. Could last like 10 minutes or so, which lets you want you to take more. So I got to the point where I was like, no, I can't do crack cocaine anymore. This is too powerful. Um, I didn't stop taking drugs, but I stuck to ketamine. So I did cocaine for like 2 years. I ended up taking ketamine for like 6 years. And during the ketamine phase, I lost two friends, one to crack cocaine and one to ketamine. Um, I was arrested twice. The one time I drank alcohol, and then I bumped into a car, and I spent the night in jail after going to the hospital to take a blood sample. And the second time I was arrested, we were found, I was chilling with like four friends of mine, and they found a bag of ketamine in the car, two cops, because we were parked at a park that I always used to park at. And I spent the weekend in jail, petrified, of course, but I managed to get out alive. Um, and before I forget, the most significant thing that happened to me in Cape Town, and one of the most significant things that happened to me in my life was when so me and my classmates were drinking at some place in a place called Lower Main in Observatory, and from there we're going to go to one of the residents. So I made a very bad decision in that as we're entering the residence, some mutual friends were waiting outside of the residence in like a in a in a in a carabas, like a quantum type of thing. So I was energetic and I didn't really want to call it a night. I wanted to keep the night going. So these friends were like, okay, no, you can go with these guys. You you'll find us here when you get back. So it's like, okay, whatever. I'll see you guys later. Let me go with these guys. These guys are talking about we're going to go to Long Street, keep the party going. It is what it is. I ended up going with these guys. It didn't. There was a lot of telltale signs, but I ended up going with these guys. Um, so maybe two streets from when we leave the residence, these guys are like, you know what, boss? We need you to buy a case. And I'm thinking, okay, fine, no problem. We'll buy a case. So instead of going to Long Street, obviously we have to drink the case. So we drink around a club in Woodstock. So usually back home, in Mafikeng, when I'm chilling with the boys, if there's a court, people don't really rush you. If you're drinking your court, if there's a case and you're drinking your court, you take your 3 sips, pass it down. Or if there's four of you, everybody grabs their own court, and then we'll see how it is when it comes to the end. So these guys, for some funny reasons, they kept rushing me. It was like four guys. So we're chilling inside the microbus, the doors open. So as I'm drinking, they keep rushing me. So I'm like, why are you rushing me? There's so many beers here. Why are you guys so upset? Why are you guys so vexed? So the taxi driver, I think I may have said something rude or in frustration, because I couldn't understand why these guys, I take 1 sip and they already wanted. I was like, no, let me, I didn't want to say, hey, I bought it. I might have said that out of frustration, like, why are you guys rushing and everything? And out of nowhere, I see the taxi driver going around and then going to the driver's seat. And I left it at that, so whatever. Out of nowhere, he pulls a gun to my head. And I thought I was going to die. I was like, I was going to die. And you know how people say, your life flashes in front of you. My life didn't even flash. I didn't want to sort of die thinking, and I also didn't beg. I didn't say, please don't. Tears just started rolling down my eyes at that moment. I thought, I'm going to die because of beers. Why did I even come with these guys, The decisions that we make when we're under the influence of drugs and alcohol. I was like, why did I even come with these guys, I know them, but I knew two of the four. The other two I didn't know. And it was the other two who, one of them was a driver who brought out the gun, and I was like, oh my God. So in the meantime, the two guys that I know are like, nah, bro, don't do it. Come on, it's not worth it. What are you doing? Long story short, he pulls the gun down, he puts it away. And I'm thinking, okay, you guys keep the beers, just take me where you dropped me. Obviously, for me, the night is over. And I was even trying to like plot revenge. And I was like, but what am I going to do really? What am I going to do? I'm far from home. It's their hometown. Um, where am I even gonna where am I even gonna find these two? Because they were not in our school. Two of the guys were in our school. So that was crazy. And I met one of the two guys that I do know, maybe like a week later, and he was apologizing. I'm sorry. I was like, yeah, no worries, brah. But that was a painful experience. The fact that I could have died over beers. So anyway, uh, I also remember one night where we were saved by the grace of God. I was traveling with my nephew. I was actually partying with my nephew, and long story short, I had an argue. I went to we were at one of my friend's house, and I got into a heated argument with one of the guys that were there. I know the guy, but he's not really a close friend. Ended up getting into a heated argument. So instead of leaving and coming back home, I took my nephew to a club. And let me tell you, when I say I don't remember going to the club, I don't remember getting out of the car and walking into the club, I don't remember driving back. I just remember my nephew knocking on my door the next morning. I'm happy to see him, but he's like, "Do you remember what happened last night?" And I'm like, the moment he said that, I thought I was dreaming really, but I remember the car that we were traveling in, it was on its side. It was like a dream, it was like a movie. I remember it being on its side with flashing lights around. I couldn't have told you where we were. I couldn't have told you how it happened. I couldn't have told you how we survived. My nephew and I came out with not even a single scratch. I don't remember putting on my seatbelt. I don't know if it was a seatbelt thing that saved us or if it was an airbag thing that saved us. But it took me a while. I apologized to my nephew for my reckless behavior and compromising his life. Um, he accepted my apology, but I took that very hard, to be honest with you. And like I say, it's by the grace of God that we were both alive, and considering the car was a write off. Um, so yeah, okay, fine. And it even took me a while to apologize to my sister um, for putting her son in that situation. I couldn't bring myself to speak to her because I felt so bad, you know. But thank goodness, thank the Lord, we're both still here. And but it's funny because situations like these, you think would make somebody quit consuming these drugs and this alcohol, but I still didn't quit. I was still continue taking my ketamine, uh, and then I started taking heroin. Heroin was more of a having friends over, and they would have it there, and I would just out of curiosity, I'd be like, "Hey, let me try, let me try," and before you know it, I'm starting to get hooked. So how it happens is I'm with my friend. We call each other friends, but maybe by definition, we're just people who take drugs with each other. You know what I'm saying? So I'm with my guy here, the guy who introduced me to heroin. And you know what's funny? When I first started taking heroin, um, my friend would always say, "Look, bro, this is a drug you don't want to get involved in. You don't want to get involved in this drug." And when people warn you about a certain drug or about heroin, you hear them, you hear what they're saying, but you can't imagine that it could be this bad. You can't imagine that it will be as bad as they say, you know? So I ended up taking heroin. Long story short, I take heroin for about 5 years. Uh, I was robbed about 2 or 3 times at knife point. and I was chased by some other drug addicts. It was crazy, something like out of a movie. And we ended up having to call the cops, and only then did they sort of um, retreat, for lack of better words. So there comes COVID. So COVID is the first time I tried to quit heroin on my own. I tried to use things like Subutex, Suboxone, and I thought it would be easier because also there was also, remember, there was restrictions as to where you could move, where you could go, you know. But after a while, you figured out the loopholes. You see, when you're a drug addict, you always figure out loopholes in certain systems. You figure out, okay, the traffic cops don't chill here. They chill here. Okay, they don't chill here this time of day. They chill here that time of day. So you start to figure out which routes you can take where you can't get into trouble. And that's what happened. So I ended up relapsing. The second time I tried again, um, but this is me trying to quit without even letting my family know that I'm trying to quit. They don't even know. They may suspect. They don't know that I that I'm into drugs, or they don't know maybe the severity of it, because it was never a discussion that we've had. Uh, yeah, like I say, my mom, I think, had suspicions. My sisters had no clue, and and it didn't help that they stayed in Joburg when we stayed in Mafikeng in the northwest. So so the second time I tried again. The first time I tried with Subutex. The second time I tried with Suboxone. But the problem is, I still stayed in the same area. I still had the same phone number. People knew how to reach me, be it by phone or be it by coming to the house, because I stayed like in like a corner room, which could be accessed from a different gate. So it was like a whole new different world. And yeah, so whenever you so the temptation to, when friends would call, and so those vulnerable moments that you found yourself in, if friends of yours would call, or somebody called out your name or knocked on your window, and they said, hey, I've got this, the need to be disciplined was very difficult, was very, very difficult. So I relapsed again, because once I realized, what I realized is, as much as things like Subutex and Suboxone and methadone help, once you are off those drugs, you sort of experience some sort of withdrawals as well, because they're in the same family. They're in the same family as heroin. Um, at the end of the day, in some way or another. So them too, like I say, have withdrawal symptoms. So the third time I tried to quit, I involved my mother. I told her, hey, this is I'm on heroin and it's bad. Obviously, I was stealing things. I was manipulating. At this point, my good friends had gone, because you get to a point where you see humans as opportunities to get money, and as long as somebody is willing to sort of be in your life and tolerate it, you will take advantage to the best of your ability, up until they say, no, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep giving you a 50 or 100 or 200. Let me just stay away. And you also you accept it, and you just focus on those that will help you, until your world starts closing in, and less and less people start wanting to help you. There's less things to steal. You've sold most of your property. Um, so yeah, so the second time, like I said, my mother was involved. She was very supportive. Of course, she wanted me to be off the drug. I had lost so much weight. You don't focus on hygiene anymore. I was a shell of the person I used to be, mentally, physically. Um, I mean, you end up missing out on family weddings. You end up missing out on family gatherings, funerals. People are always asking, where am I? And I'm sure word gets around, like, okay, this guy's on drugs, but you don't really know who knows and who doesn't, because you're so out of touch. You only focus on your drug family, the people that can help you with drugs, you know. So I ended up relapsing when my mom was trying to help me, and she didn't know initially, but she ended up finding out. And a long story short, uh, my mother just sort of sat me down and was like, "No, man," because now I was stealing. I was just stealing too much product. I was stealing too much product from the family. When I would get sent to buy groceries, I wouldn't bring back the change. I would buy things with the company credit card, and if there's a list for me of things to buy, I would buy extra things and sort of trade with drug dealers so that I could sort of they could give me the product that I needed. So things were just out of hand at this point, unmanageable, and I realized that I couldn't keep going like this. So so we had decided, okay, no, look, let's try and find you a rehab. How do you feel? And I was like, no, look, I'm ready. There's no other way for me to get out of this. And I saw myself. I was just not the same person that I was anymore. I couldn't even look in the mirror. When I was in the vicinity of a mirror, I would just walk past it unless I actually absolutely had to look, you know, um, like brushing your teeth or whatever. And if you had to ask me the reasons why I decided to quit, it wasn't sort of like a single rock bottom. It was numerous things that had happened. Um, Realizing those days when you don't have money and you're withdrawing and you're in pain and you have to sort of figure out how to make a means to get the drug, um, getting robbed all the time, the jail sent, being in jail, disappointing my family, disappointing my mother, my sister. Um, I've got a daughter, trying to become a better person for my daughter, because when you're taking drugs, you don't want your family or your child to see you in that position. So you sort of avoid them, which made me lose a lot of time. So wanting to become a better father for my daughter, um, wanting to become a better person for myself, just the disappointment, that I'd become, and also I didn't want to. I was also afraid of. I don't want to find out what the next level of a crash could be. Would I be living on the streets? Would it be homelessness? I don't want to get there, but I was close. I was close. And one thing, I didn't want to die. I don't want to die an addict. I don't want to die and people just think, okay, that was the last memory people had of me, that I was a drug user. I didn't want to do that. I knew that rehab was not going to be easy, but I realized that also, for me to reach that stage where I'm a better person, I'm healthier, I'm clean, it's a step I had to take. And so we go through the process where my family is my sisters, my mother, Tandy, a family friend, we're all looking, mostly them really, they're looking at different rehabs, um, nearby, some far, and we end up finding one. So before that, I ended up doing like a week of detox in Pretoria, and I did a week in Pretoria, and I remember they had us on some sort of drip, which just makes you so drowsy and makes you forget. If you had to ask me how we spent our time there, I wouldn't be able to tell you. So from there, I go to a rehab in Mpumalanga, uh, very far from home. My first month there was miserable because I did a 6 month stint in rehab. So my first month there is miserable, and when I first got there, I thought I was going to be there for 3 months. So along the way, I get told no, it's actually 6 months. So I was frustrated, I was angry, But after a month, things started to happen whereby, obviously now the withdrawals are out of, are starting to, yeah, I'm starting to gain my energy. I'm starting to gain my appetite. Because when I first got there, I couldn't sleep. I didn't have an appetite up until dinner. So around 6, 7 is when I started when I could have an appetite. Anything before that, I couldn't. I felt like throwing up if I had something to eat. I just couldn't do it. So after a month, I started to, when the physical started to become better, slowly but surely, the mental started to change. They've got it set up there whereby there's some sort of routine, um, from 6 o'clock up until 8 o'clock, if I'm not lying. There's things for you to do, and it's consistent every day. Things like worship in the morning, where you can just share Bible stories, or you can listen to a mentor, or someone that can advise you. Um, on a projector, you can just try and uplift each other to things like having to go and to things like workstations where you've got certain tasks and you have to sort of you're assigned a certain area. You sort of clean it up and they come and check, or things like painting. There's things like feeding animals like rabbits and chickens. There's things like sweeping. There's things like grinding and chopping wood and various tasks. And sometimes, so you alternate as well. So they've always got you in routine. So there are a variety of stuff there, and I think everybody contributed in their own way. Everybody contributed in their own way, and I'm very thankful. So what happened is I started to sort of um, be more grateful and realize that, because first of all, you realize people are in worse situations, and not everybody gets that opportunity to go to rehab, either through finances or through them just not wanting to do it. So just to be there and to have that opportunity to sort of change my life, I appreciated it. Also, you start to realize in talking to other people, their stories are so much. You think to yourself, "Wow, I can't believe they went through that." Because a lot of the times you see people, and you see them maybe acting out of anger or out of frustration, and you don't know how they got there or what's wrong with them. You sort of judge a book by its cover, not realizing that he's actually been through some things that maybe you wouldn't have been able to go through. So you start to develop compassion, you start to develop gratitude, and I started to appreciate more. I started to appreciate my mother more. Everything that she's done to me. Everything that she has done for me. Shielding me from negative environments, shielding me from negative neighborhoods, trying to do the best for me. If I needed something, she was always there. I just started to, the things that I took for granted, I started to appreciate more. And I just started to have sort of like a mind shift that went from negative to positive. And yeah, I was there for 6 months, and through every period, like every month or so, every landmark, I started to sort of feel the change, physically and mentally. And I was super grateful for that opportunity to have been there. And I think going to that particular rehabilitation center was what I needed for myself, because it also had some sort of things that I didn't agree with. But I think those little things is what made me sort of stronger. Because I don't think a rehab should be a walk in the park. I think there has to be elements that sort of let you work, like, work for your success, work for your joy, work for what you want to achieve, as opposed to just a breeze in the park where everything is done for you. Because some people would obviously complain, like, where I was before, they made your bed, they did this, we didn't have to work, everything was easy. But with that comes You don't have that thing whereby there's certain lessons that you miss, and then I think there needs to be a bit of hardship, so that you can think to yourself, I never want to come back here. If it's too easy, then you can easily relapse and say to yourself, look, I can just go back there. It was a breeze. It was like a holiday, really. So I did my 6 months, and before that, I actually got invited to go and speak at a school, two of us, to go and speak at a high school, which was starting to have sort of problems with drugs, and so we were just sort of asked to go and speak and share our story and try and uplift the youth and things like that, which I enjoyed very much. I mean, the fact that I was chosen, I was really appreciative. So thank you for that. Thank you to the team for that. And so I did my 6 months. So what's important also, when you leave rehab, they have a little thing where you need to have some sort of goals that you can sort of focus on when you leave, which I think is important. And also, there's certain things that you need to sort of focus on. There's things you need to focus on that are sort of like preventative measures. So I've realized that some people relapse. Look, people could relapse for whatever reason, right? But if your chances of relapsing are much higher if you go back to the same environment. You have access to your same friends, You don't really follow through with your goals and stuff like that. You still have access to money. So with me, I stayed in a completely different environment. I stayed on the outskirts of where I used to stay. I had to change my phone number, get a new SIM card, I didn't have access to money immediately, You have to have somebody who's going to sort of be with you. If you have to go somewhere, you're a passenger and somebody's there with you, just to try and help you not sort of go back into your old ways. It's not absolute proof, but it certainly helps, it helps to have these sort of measures that you can sort of focus on, so that you don't that prevent the chances of you relapsing, and also I would have to also do drug tests and send them on a weekly basis. I still do. I've been out of rehab since the 21st of October, 2023. So yeah, and yeah, so I've been out of rehab since the 21st. I've been clean ever since, and I'm very thankful to my family. I'm thankful to everybody that was praying for me. I'm thankful to the team at the facility. I'm glad I took it upon myself to want to take that step as well. I'm thankful to the Lord. Everybody that helped me get to this path, I'm very thankful to, and I hope I just keep going strong, because leaving drugs, when I was an addict, I didn't believe I could get to the stage. I couldn't see the other side of not being an addict, They say you're forever an addict, but I couldn't see that side of me being clean and all of that. So the fact that I'm here is a blessing, And yeah, that's my story. I hope it could help someone out there. And I'll see you in the next video. Enjoy your day.